Don't look now, but the Bears, Chargers, and Dolphins are in playoff contention, while the Broncos, Falcons, and Panthers try and put a halt to some pretty poor play recently. How much longer before Dirk Cutter and Steve Sarkisian get the boot? Can the Raiders use last Thursday's win over the Chiefs as a springboard to the rest of their season as they fly cross-country to face the surprising Bills? Dwayne Brown returns for Houston as they travel to Seattle. The Steelers are a playoff contender on the field and a nightmare off of it. We get the rivalry of rivalries on Sunday with the Cowboys and Redskins. And can at least one London game this season be competitive? Well, with the Browns playing in this final London game on Sunday morning, I won't be keeping my hopes up. We'll preview Kenny Pritt's favorite game as well as all additional Week 8 matchups as OFN NFL Preview with Tony Mejia on PSN starts now. All right, thanks for tuning into the Ourlads Football Radio Network as we preview Week 8 in the NFL with Tony Mejia as an independent sports columnist and exclusive handicapper at VegasInsider.com. All right, Tony, so what'd you learn in Week 7?
Oh, I mean, I think we learned that you can call as many penalties as you want down the stretch of the game, and they'll keep doing it. So that's what happened in Raiders Chiefs, and a lot of them were clear and blatant fouls, but some could have gotten going. So learned that officials control way too much of this game, which is a lesson we learn every week. So I'm sure didn't really learn that, but just had that solidified.
Reminded us, unfortunately. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a week or
Weekly
two.
Reminders we get.
Yeah, I mean, you go the whole off season and you kind of forget about it, and then the season comes, and maybe a week or two can go by, and you don't even think too much about it. But then all of a sudden, the games do start to mean something, and then these ridiculous penalties. We talked, of course, the big one a couple of weeks ago with the Jets and Patriots, and the madness that you're talking about. But yeah, in college pro football, it's unfortunate. I'm glad though that they are turning these NFL officials into full-time employees. I think that was way overdue, and hopefully it'll help. But they just have to they have to start thinking more like human beings and not like robots that have to have to call the game through the letter of the law. Have to have a little bit of common sense. Not sure officials in the NFL have common sense, though.
It was a fun game,
sure,
to get it started in the week, and now I think we're in a sense of you see desperation setting in, which always adds a fun ingredient to spice up games. So looking forward to Week 8.
The Chiefs a couple weeks ago, we thought that they were the hot team. They were the hot team. They were undefeated. They crushed the Patriots. They were on top of the world. 2 weeks later, they were on a 2-game losing streak, and now the Eagles are the hot team. So is this maybe this is what we're going to see and I don't know how much longer this continues, depending on how much it depends if the Patriots don't turn into all of a sudden, a 6 or 7 game win streak. If they do that, then it won't be long before we're all talking about the Patriots again, even though they're still the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl right now, even though it's just a little bit over Pittsburgh. But the Eagles are the other new hot team, and they deserve it. They had a nice win on Monday night, and it's good for the sport to see other teams out there giving it a shot, because the Patriots would lose in Hightower. They're vulnerable. I don't care what the media says. The Patriots defense is not back just because they stopped the Atlanta Falcons, who can't score on anybody.
Who stopped themselves, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 100% in that boat, especially since Hightower has keyed their resurgence to a certain extent and is the most versatile member in that front group. His ability to play everywhere and do lots of things is going to be missed, and I'm convinced that they're going to have to win a few more shootouts before the season up if they're going to hold on to that top seed, which I think is essential for them. I know we came into the season thinking that this would be the prohibitive favorite and
sure.
15-1 potentially, but it really hasn't built. I mean, we saw pretty early that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah, first game.
Like at this point, I think we got, probably you could probably find more gung-ho Steeler people than Patriot people as far as this is a team you'll see in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it's really, even though the Steelers are playing well, or at least they're winning games defensively for the first time in a while, more than their offense. But I do think it is. I do really believe that there's a lot more. This could be a season where we get a different type of winner. I really do believe that. I think because look, the Patriots, we know they're who they are, but even as great as the Patriots are, they don't win the Super Bowl every year. And this is
Right.
they have been this type of organization since Brady and Belichick have been together. So we always think they're going to win. We always think they're going to be there. Some years are better than others, and I think this is one of the years that I think it's obvious they're just not as good as they were last year. But the question is, has everybody else, are they good enough and capable of knocking off the Patriots in the postseason at the right time? And if they do, then it'll be wide open.
Right, and that's where they do separate themselves. In a one-game elimination type setting, we've seen them succeed way too often to really write them off. Only them and the Rams are perfect on the road. Everybody else has lost at least once.
All right. By the way, if your team is under 500, don't fret, because 39 teams since 1990 have advanced to the postseason with records of 500 or lower after 7 games. So let's get started and talk about one of those teams under 500, Baltimore. They're a 3-point favorite at home against Miami. Miami has won 3 straight. Cutler's out. Not sure whether that's a bad thing. It was for the Jets because Matt Moore fueled the comeback for the Dolphins last week. Remember, we talked about how teams get closer under adversity, and that seems to be what has happened with the Dolphins, with all the adversity that they dealt with earlier on in the season, not playing a home game until this month. And then all of a sudden they're winning some games. Sure, they're not beating it, and even if they win tonight, they're not like beating any big teams or anything like that. Maybe we thought the Atlanta game was a big game, or a big team, but that's not the case right now. But they're winning games, and in the NFL, winning games is really all that matters. And they can go 5-2. They got a Sunday night football game next week at home against the Raiders, by the way, so that could be huge also if they can beat a Baltimore team that's lost 4 to 5.
Yeah, early number on that has the Raiders favored by 1. The one that Westgate's
Oh, wow.
out
There
on
you go.
Tuesday. Yep. It's in the TNF preview on VI right now, and I took a long look at this game. And I mean, you break it down to the Dolphins turn 20 minutes on Sunday into potentially going on a wild ride this season. If they win this game, they move to 5-2, ties everybody else in the conference with a gaudy record, and then you move forward. And then who knows whether Matt Moore is going to be able to keep this gig. I think if he plays well, he can.
Yeah, sure.
Considering how shaky Cutler looked. So, I mean, it went from potentially losing to your rival and getting swept, which hadn't happened in a while, to, we'll see what they turn it into tonight.
Yeah, I think with Baltimore, it's all about the injuries. There's just no question about that. I mean, this team was already, they were a borderline. Look, they were, when we talked about them at the beginning of the season, the reason that they were a sleeper team, and even though they were, they were you looked at them health wise at that point and they were still pretty healthy. But when you're a sleeper team in the beginning of the season, and then you lose as much talent that they have, your chances are just so small. They can't do anything on offense because they don't have any players. Everybody's out. If you don't have your best lineman in yonder, you're not going to be able to run the ball much. If you don't have receivers, you can't throw the ball much. It looks like Max Williams is out again, and he's their most talented tight end. He just hasn't ever been able to stay healthy. We don't know about Wallace. We don't know about Macklin. We don't know about Perryman. And what do you think? what's your gut tell you? Do you think any of those three will play tonight?
Perryman's supposed to be a go now.
Okay.
The latest on him. 5 of their 7 receivers had questionable designations as of Tuesday. Yesterday, Perryman, I believe, was cleared, and Macklin and Wallace are both heavy question marks. I use that term when you legitimately won't know until the hour beforehand. Pretty much you got varying degrees of questionable. I think Perryman might still be questionable, but don't play. In that sense, Campanaro's out. He's a nice piece that is constantly injury riddled, but when he's able to play out there, the speed that he brings to the table, kind of a really nice piece for this offense that needs those type of quick strike 5 to 7 yard outs. Won't be in the lineup today. You mentioned Williams; he's in that same vein. Dating back to last December, when that's been Flacco's most productive game of the last 3 years, is the blowout of the Dolphins last year up there in Baltimore. His top receiver was Dennis Pitta, and obviously Pitta's career is now over. So I mean, this is a team that's been decimated by injuries for the whole season. It started in training camp. It started early, and then it just continued to snowball. It's a shame because it's happened really 2 years in a row to them. This will be their third straight season missing the playoffs if they do. And again, if they don't get this one tonight, they probably will fall into 3-5. If they do pull it out, then you hit 500 at the halfway point, and you can try to build, and certainly you're
get healthy.
So huge game up there for John Harbaugh and his staff.
Yeah, they got to get healthy, period. They're not going anywhere until they get some of these receivers back to help Flacco out. By the way, Baltimore not only won last year, but these two teams have played 7 times since 2008, and Baltimore has won 6 out of the 7, and they've covered all 7, including winning 3 out of the last 4 years. So the 5th straight year that these two teams are playing each other. If Baltimore wins tonight, it's going to be because of their defense. Going to have to steal some points tonight. Maybe with the backup quarterback, they can do it. Miami's offense is still up in the air. You don't know what to expect from them. Baltimore needs to shut down Jay Ajayi. We'll see whether they can do that. They did get Brandon Williams back last week, so that helped out a little bit, even though you didn't know it, because the Vikings were able to run the ball. I like the Dolphins tonight. I mean, remember we talked in the beginning of the season about the Dolphins as a very interesting sleeper team too. So this was a team that we both thought could make the postseason, and I'm going to go ahead and take the Dolphins getting 3 in that one. Let's go. Go ahead.
No, we'll see how Moore responds. It's obviously on the road, but this isn't. It's not like he's an inexperienced backup. I mean, they made the playoffs last year and he started in the wild card game. So he'll just go back out there. We'll see if he relishes this opportunity. I mean, I'm sure it's a guy that's disappointed that when Tannehill went down, he didn't immediately get that vote of confidence, and they went out and got Cutler. Now it's almost like a third chance to prove he deserves a gig.
Yeah, and he should have at least been given an opportunity at some point this season. I mean, with the offense struggling as it was, but maybe, hey, look, when you win, you keep the starting quarterback in. That's what these head coaches do. But look, I've talked about this in college and the pros more this season than ever in my entire broadcasting career. You get these coaches, they're pig-headed, and they won't give these backups a chance, and you got to wait for the injuries. Matter of fact, I spoke yesterday with an Arizona writer about what's going, the whole same situation with Khalil Tate and Rich Rodriguez. And if it wasn't for Dawkins getting hurt, we may still not know who Khalil Tate is. So maybe this is exactly what the Dolphins needed to get their season going. We'll see if Moore can get it done for the Dolphins. All right. On Sunday, we'll find out if the Chargers are for real. They've won. They started the season 0-4. 0-3-1 against the spread, and in the last 3 games they've won and covered them all. So one more game away from reaching a 500 mark and being able to start from scratch again after the bye. But a big test, of course, in New England. Patriots are a 7-point favorite in this one, and as we said, I don't think the media is right about this defense all of a sudden being relevant or a big part of the Patriots anymore. Prove it for another 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll talk about the Patriot defense improving. But you don't improve it 1 week after you give up over 300 yards passing to Josh McCown. Sorry, I'm not buying it. And then Hightower's out. Gilmore still banged up. Not sure if he's going to play. Chargers are 2-0-1 against the spread on the road this year, by the way. And we talked about that last week. They just feel better, I guess, on the road because they are a road team. So who knows? Maybe they're able to deal with the road better than other teams. I don't know. This is a tricky one because of the fact that the Chargers are playing good ball, and Phillip Rivers usually comes up. I kind of feel better about Phillip Rivers in these opportunities on the road.
Well, it's a team that's facing 16 straight road situations for the most part. Not to be overly dramatic, but they're really not going to get the support in LA until potentially later in the year. Maybe they are in the playoff mix down the stretch. You'll see the last couple home games, people come around on them. But for the most part, they're unwanted where they're playing. So I think that mindset does help when you develop it. We're stuck in a situation where Eagles fans are turning our stadium out on us. Let's just go ahead and deal with the fact that this is going to be the norm. So you go out to Foxborough. I'm sure Philip Rivers does look forward to the individual matchup with Brady. And so I think he'll play well. The receivers are healthier. Looks like their offense will be intact. So certainly they're a live dog.
Yeah, I do. I do think that. I think if you're looking for a decent money line play this week, I don't think the Chargers are bad. And it's not just because of Philip Rivers. We've talked about that defense coming on, and boy, they terrorized Trevor Siemian last week. Ingram and Bosa. It's a dangerous duo. That defense was a lot better than they played early on in the season. So things are starting to get a little bit better with the Chargers, and I don't think that they're a crazy money line play this week. Oakland and Buffalo, and the Bills are a 2.5-point favorite at home. Bills will be on Thursday Night Football, by the way, next week against the Jets. Oakland, as we mentioned, will be on Sunday Night Football at Miami next week. Oakland trying to get back to 500 after the big win against the Chiefs. The way I look at this game actually is pretty simple for me. A couple things. One, now that they're 3-4, facing a team that they may have to battle for a wild card spot, this is as huge as a game as it's going to get for the Raiders this year. Who's a better team? I think the Raiders are. And number two, if the Raiders are going to be able to jumpstart their season, as I said in the open, then they can't have a better way of doing it than what happened last week. If they don't win this week, I don't think they're ever jumpstarting their season. Plus, they had the extra few days to get ready for this one, and I don't worry about the Raiders going East Coast to win games because they've proven over the last couple of years they've been able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a great test for both because Oakland, at one point liked them to reach the AFC Championship. And we'll see what happens with what we saw on Thursday against the Chiefs. Where it was completely different from what we've seen out of Amari Cooper, out of Carr since very early on in the season. That Jet game, all we've seen from them is a suspect offensive line and a dink and dunk passing game, which really doesn't work very well because Cooper kept dropping everything. So all of a sudden they like the familiarity that they have with the Chiefs, and that turned into over 200 yards receiving, really taking shots downfield with everybody. Some of it was out of necessity and a comeback effort, but the bottom line is they opened up the passing game. Can you do that against Buffalo on the road? I'm not certain. It's a challenge for that defense to stop a predominant run game. With a mobile quarterback, they run into Mariota and they run into Alex Smith, obviously, but Tyrod Taylor's a different animal in that sense. Shady's gotten going, so to me, I think it's a great test for both because I do buy that the Bills have a shot at sustaining their success thus far and making the playoffs.
Well, look, I think we talked about this several times as well, and that even though Marshawn Lynch is going to miss the game, I think this is okay. I think it's okay for a couple of reasons. One is it forces the Raiders now to go to some younger and faster running backs, including Richard. I certainly hope he gets the most touches. Washington's a nice little player. I like them since Texas Tech, but Richard a little bit more explosive. Like to see him be the primary ball carrier. And I also think it's going to be good because this just gives Marshawn an opportunity to kind of step back, sit on the sidelines, and maybe kind of get himself going. Because Raiders, they scored 31 points last week, but it wasn't because they did much on the ground. So that's still the missing ingredient. If they want to be a complete team, they got to start running the ball a little bit better. So maybe this will help Marshawn Lynch get going, just taking a seat back and re-energize himself for national TV on Sunday against the Dolphins. But Khalil Mack returns to Buffalo, so that's a nice little side story where he was a star in college. All right. We get the rivalry game, Dallas and Washington. They're both 3-3, so this is a big game. But for me, this is all about injuries. Redskins are just so banged up right now. We don't know at all at this point in time what to expect from their offensive line. It's like almost every starter on that offensive line has got an injury situation, including Williams and Scherf. So, I mean, that is now it's good news that they haven't lost anybody yet because some of those injuries and looked like it could have been as serious as Jason Peters. So at least there's that. Then their linebackers are banged up. Zach Brown, Mason Foster, Preston Smith. Now maybe they get Josh Norman back, so that would help, especially against Des Bryant. But I'm just a little bit concerned with the injuries. I want to see exactly what happens there on game day. I kind of like the Redskins if they get most of these guys back and healthy. Because I'm still not sold on the Cowboys just because they beat up on the Niners. I mean, they've beaten the Niners, Arizona, and the Giants, and so basically they've beaten the 3 under 500 teams, and they've lost to the 3 teams over 500: Denver, Rams, Packers, or at least Denver was, and of course Green Bay had Aaron Rodgers. So what does that say? Well, they've beaten the bad teams, they lose to the good teams, and I kind of put Washington in that kind of average to good. Plus they're getting a couple of points at home, a little bit of an underdog. Dallas swept them last year. So I think the Redskins here at home may not be a bad play, but again, it's all about those injuries. I'm a little bit concerned there.
Yeah, the offensive line is immense here, and you have to figure out if Trent Williams is going to go chief among them. You do get Josh Norman back unless there's a setback. He's scheduled to play after the rib thing. Cowboys have Sean Lee back, so both defenses should be competent. So we'll see. I think Dak Prescott going on the road now, you have some sort sense of confidence, whereas last year it was still a novelty. So I think this should be a game that it's tough to cap because you could go a number of different directions. But I think that's why they're in a situation where they could be a road dog or a road favorite.
Yeah, I mean that's also why I'm kind of thinking Redskins may not be bad here. I like the fact that they're getting a couple of points. Who knows? Maybe this line goes up to 2.5, and then you can you can get 3. But I just I got to believe the line is the way it is because of also the injuries. I mean, I don't think the Redskins should be a 2-point dog against Dallas if they were healthy, nor do I think they would be. But we'll see. I mean, we'll find out if this is also a field goal game because both kickers are out. Of course, Hopkins is out for the year. Bailey's out for a few weeks. So Mike Nugent will get the first crack. So a couple of backup kickers might come into play if it's a close one in Washington. Houston and Seattle. Seattle favored by 5.5. Dwayne Brown ended his retirement, so it looks like he's going to play on Sunday. So that's good timing for Houston. Looks like they also may get Kevin Johnson back, so that's important. He banged up this year, has missed some games. Key part of that secondary, especially with losing a free agent, a key guy last year. In that secondary. So you take a look at Deshaun Watson, and he's been very comfortable at home. He hasn't been on the road with this team since the New England loss, which looked like a win until New England stole the game late. So keep that in mind. Houston hasn't been on the road in a month. But they're 3-2 straight up, 4-1 against the spread with Watson at quarterback, and the only 2 losses were to the Patriots and the Chiefs. You know what I think about Houston? I like Houston in this one. To me, this is clearly the best money line play. You can get over 2-1 on the line, 6 points. Don't think Seattle is – I don't even know if Seattle's a better team, to be frank with you. Their offensive line's banged up, and it was bad before it was banged up. So even though there's no Merciless and Watt, I think Houston should be able to get a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson. They have no running game. I like Houston in this spot. I think they win the game outright.
All right. Well, I like Seattle. I'm not sure about the spread though. I think they've found ways to win. This is all you're expecting from them at this point. Find ways to win during the regular season. Don't put yourself in a hole and try to get a home playoff game at some point because they are a different team at home. I think it's more of a testing ground for Watson. Probably the most difficult venue to play at in the entire league. One of only 2 4:00 games. This week we just mentioned the other one in Dallas, Washington. So, the stage will be yours, and now you got to go against an elite defense that can make you look bad. But conversely, he's got skills that they don't see every day. So we'll see how much he has progressed as a rookie to get something accomplished in front of the 12th man. I mean, it's a riveting game. But I think you do, because you're so big on Houston. I mean, they lost so much on that defense. I can't see them really excelling if Russell Wilson has a big game, because at this point he's growing more accustomed to having no time and having to do
run for his life,
the improvisation.
Yeah,
exactly, run for his life. Rawls is slowly progressing and getting back into the things he used late some last week. Procise is healthier. So again, it's a good test for both.
Yeah, and another team though, Seattle, like Dallas, that hasn't beaten anybody yet. So keep that in mind. They beat the Giants. Now, when they beat the Rams, which was their best win, that was the Rams' worst game. And then the Colts, whereas they lost to the two good teams, the Packers and Tennessee. So again, I think I just think, and I see where you're coming from for sure in both saying, okay, I like Seattle, but not sure of the points, because that's the thing that, to me, I think is way out of whack. And I've said that a lot this year about Houston. I just don't think they should be. I don't think there's, and I know that it's in Seattle. I get it, but they're not 6 points. Seattle, no way. I don't see it. By the way, Earl Thomas, Michael Bennett, they're going to be okay. They're going to be able to play this week. No problem.
Yeah, the Seahawks are pretty healthy for them. They always carry the destination for all those guys are expected to play.
All right.
If anything, Jeremy Lane might still be out, the corner who's missed the last couple of weeks.
Okay, now we go to a Sunday night game, Pittsburgh and Detroit. And boy, this big game for Detroit. Detroit has to stop the bleeding. They've lost 3 out of 4. And if they can do it, then their season turns right back around, because they get the Packers next week in Lambeau on Monday Night Football. So a couple of primetime games back-to-back weeks for Detroit. And they're coming off a bye. So obviously, they should be able to re-energize themselves, get a little bit healthier. And that includes the receivers. It would be nice. Apparently, they're supposed to get Galladay back. That should help out. Not sure about Tate. Ansah has been a little bit banged up, so that the bye week helps there. As I said at the open, you would think that Pittsburgh is a sub 500 team, the way you're hearing all this craziness all season. Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant, and it's just I don't know what's going on over there. It just seems really weird. And of course Ben Roethlisberger, but they're winning. I kind of like Detroit in this spot though, as a short. Even though they're a dog, they're a home dog, but I kind of like the home dog prime time desperate game off the bye situation. And Pittsburgh hasn't exactly been all that great on the road in some of these spots, so I'm going to go ahead and take Detroit.
Yeah, Glover Quinn is hoping to get out of concussion protocol, I guess. That's unclear if that's what it is, or more of just a head thing. But I mean, he's been through walkthroughs, I think, and that's obviously a key member of their secondary to deal with the Ben and the passing attack. So, injury situation to monitor there. Golden Tate with the shoulder, probably expected to play, but again, I mean, they've got injury-related issues on the offensive line too. So
yeah,
definitely, especially since you have the extra few hours, being the Sunday night game, do your research if you're going to wager on this game, and make sure you know who's playing. To me, I think Pittsburgh just doesn't like each other, Greg. It's a divided locker room that survives week to week because they're so talented. But if they were to go on a losing streak, I think there would be issues. The fact that they're so good, and that masks a lot of warts. And they went from being the Super Bowl favorite one week to a loss that nobody saw coming, and that's really where the finger pointing started. To the point where Le'Veon Bell is tweeting at Ryan Clark on TV, telling him to stop talking about the Steelers.
Well, look, I mean, I think Matthew Stafford, who hasn't had some big moments now for a few weeks. I think this is a good opportunity for him to get going and to save the day for Detroit. And that's kind of where I'm leaning in this one. He knows how big this game is. And look, I just think when you're messing with fire, when you have a divided locker room, and then you have some nice wins and you're on a nice little short type, very short little win run here. I think that's I don't think that can sustain very long. I just don't. I think that when you have a divided locker room like that, I'd be shocked if you can go on some sort of 4 or 5 game winning streak. Unless you're playing really bad teams. This is not a bad team. This is a desperate team. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and take Detroit in this one. But we'll see. Pittsburgh's been proving a lot of people wrong this season. And you know what? It helps when you have maybe the best running back and the best receiver on the same team, and a defense that's very much improving. Kind of makes you forget about all that other stuff. All right, let's go to a big game on Monday night in the AFC West. Now, this is a game that, even though it's a 7-point spread for the Chiefs, I'm not worried about the number. I think the Chiefs roll over Denver here. They've lost 2 straight, so we know they want to come out firing. They've got the extra few days to prepare. Trevor Siemian proved once again just who he is. Said that beginning of the season when I got off to a good start. Didn't buy it. Still don't. Never going to. There's no way Trevor Siemian will be the starting quarterback of the Broncos next season. Denver's not even going to make the playoffs this season. They'd have to be very lucky with other teams just not winning. This is just not a very good offensive team. And Sanders was out last week. Maybe he plays, so that could help him a little bit. I would really like to see Denver start Jamal Charles. Anderson's a nice little running back, but he's not Jamal Charles. And you get Kansas City game, get him back in there, start him, have him out there for the first series or two, see if he can get something going. I'd like to see him get about 15 or 20 touches because we know Denver needs to run the ball to be successful. I think it's the perfect game for them to get Charles going. And if he does, then maybe Denver has a shot. But anything short of that, I think the Chiefs are going to romp.
Yeah, I don't know if Jamal Charles is Jamal Charles anymore. I just don't. I like Anderson better, but the whole key to the offense is a line that can't block, can't run block, can't pass block. I think it makes Siemian look worse, and he certainly hasn't helped himself with his throws. Demaryius Thomas dealing with injuries, not 100%. Sanders out, so it's an offense that this has been on the bulletin board. The Broncos are going to struggle offensively. Write it down, don't back them. And certainly I stayed away from the Chargers from the Chargers game last week. Mm-hmm. It was a pick 'em. I should have put went down and gotten on LA, but instead I just went with the under, which was an easy win. And that may be the way to go here, because I don't know, the one thing that if you're Andy Reid and we've come to know his philosophy, that offense isn't going to hurt you. You're home. You can kind of rely on Alex Smith, the game manager here, just to make sure you don't make mistakes and you walk out with a win, which makes the 7 a risky play. But we'll see. I'm going to revisit that on Monday.
Okay. Well, they got a little bit more extra days to get a little bit healthier on offense. So I think that'll help him out. They've won 3 straight up and against the spread against Denver. I think that's important. The fact that Denver can't. And by the way, I think part of the reason also that Denver hasn't been able to move the ball, and I think we're starting to see that with the Jets as well, is when again in the earliest part of the season, you got to try to figure teams out. Nobody knows, and then all of a sudden you start looking at 4 or 5 games worth of film, and opposing defensive coordinators say, okay, well, what works, what doesn't work for these teams, and what works for teams like the Jets or Denver. They have to run the ball. So what do? We stop the run. We force them to pass the football because that's Josh McCown and Trevor Siemian. So I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Denver hasn't been able to have as much success running the ball now as they did early on in the season. Everybody knows, stop Denver's running game, and we're going to more than likely beat Denver. And even if Trevor Siemian will have a good game every once in a while. It's going to happen. And if he does, he beats you, fine. He beats me, more power to them, and you live with that. And the other thing too is if Denver's going to win this game is that defense is going to have to come up with some big plays. I mean, they're a very good defense, so go out there Monday night and help Denver win the game by making sure that you either stop Kansas City or come up with some big turnovers, because that's something Denver has not had a lot of success at so far this season, which is surprising with that defense.
Yeah, and conversely, Kansas City's defense is somewhat a statement game for them. They're the reason that they lost the Raider game, bad in penalties, and it was a Raiders team that had scored less than 20 points in 4 or 5 consecutive games.
Sure.
All of a sudden, they got pass happy against a secondary that, again, never will replace Eric Berry. It won't happen all season.
No.
And we'll miss him more often than not.
Yeah.
And you can take advantage of him. I don't know if Simeon, probably not.
No,
but that's what you have to do if you're going to beat the Chiefs. You have to force turnovers and get Alex Smith to be sketchy back in the pocket, and then try to look to move the ball downfield against a secondary that still has a lot to prove.
Yeah, because Peters is, Peters is not. I mean, he's overrated. He's a good player, but he's not a great player. He takes way too many chances, and he can easily get the penalty here and there and give up the big score. And that's without Berry, and all of a sudden, if you have a bad game like they had last week and like he had last week, then it really does expose them in that secondary. By the way, the Broncos will only be playing their 3rd road game, and they haven't looked very good on the road in their first 2, losing to Buffalo and then, of course, getting shut out last week against the Chargers. All right, Atlanta and the Jets. And, the one thing as a Jet fan that I was hoping for this week is that Steve Sarkisian would still be in Atlanta. So far, so good. If they were going to fire him, they would have fired him already. So I think that puts the Jets in a good situation here. I just don't see Atlanta getting out of this fog until they do fire Sarkisian. Maybe it'll change, but I'm just having a hard time believing it. There's something, the combination of what happened in the Super Bowl, which we see an awful lot, the post Super Bowl loss, and then this offense, which has only scored a combined 41 points in 3 straight losses to AFC East teams. That's just inexcusable. They don't have a ton of injuries on offense where you can go, well, there's excuse here, there's excuse there. There ain't no excuse. The excuse, that's it. There's no excuse. The only excuse is they got a different coordinator and something's not working there. And I don't think that's going to change much this week. And when it does, like we talked about the Raiders last week, you know what? When you come out of the shell and you start looking like last year's offense, well, then that's when I'll start backing you again. But until it happens, no way am I touching Atlanta. Matter of fact, I like the Jets. Maybe they can win this game. I wouldn't be surprised if they would. I mean, I think even when they lost, I think this is a good, young, together team where the Falcons are anything but together. I'm not saying they're a divided locker room, but they're just very confused right now. They have no confidence. And as I said the other day on Monday, I don't think it was a smart thing to go for it on 4th and 7 at midfield. Not that, it shows that we're going to do everything to beat the Patriots. No, you know what it showed me? They're desperate. That's what it showed me. We're so desperate that we're going to do anything we possibly can to try to score points. And I just think it was the wrong message, and they couldn't even kick field goals. So I just don't think it's going to turn around in 1 week. Maybe I'm wrong, but prove me wrong. I like the Jets in this one.
Yeah, I mean, desperate can be good. That was foolish. I mean, that was just misguided and wrong and dumb. Look, Sarkisian, we're on the same page with that. Didn't like it, we can't be accused of second guessing when you first guess. So that's not going to change, and I do agree he's going to eventually lose that gig. But they can simplify things and get back to basics and move the ball against the Jets. I mean, the Jets are vulnerable, and we'll see. We'll see if it happens. We'll see if having Sanu back for a second straight week, will help some things. He's a crafty guy, probably one of the smarter players on their offense. I mean, it's entirely about the play calling, and really just doing silly, cute things That goal line
Oh, the
series of
handoff.
play calls was
Yeah, you like that handoff.
infantile.
Fourth down.
Was nonsense. So yeah, I mean, look, all that stuff. He's got to just put his head down and say, all right, this was an offense that was fantastic before I got here.
Oh, it was amazing.
Let's play to its strengths and see what we can do.
Yeah. By the way, the Jets are 2-1 straight up, 3-0 against the spread this year as a home dog. And I think maybe they might be better off. It looks like that Buster Screen may not play. So I think that's a big.
Yeah, he's been terrible.
That's a big plus. Big plus for the Jets with no Buster Screen. All right. Let's see. Carolina, Tampa Bay. Boy, both these teams need a win. For me, this one's easy for me. See, everybody always talks about the quarterback every week. Hey, is the quarterback going to be in? The quarterback not going to be in? It all depends on if the quarterback's going to play. Guy's superstar quarterback, is he going to play? Well, you know what? Same thing applies to guys on defense like Luke Kuechly. And the fact that Luke Kuechly is playing, to me, it's all I need to know. Because you know what I think about Dirk Cutter. Dirk Cutter should be fired. If he's not fired before the end of the season, he'll be fired after the season. He shouldn't even be there. Carolina that game last week was just ridiculous. I mean, they completely outplayed Chicago, 2 stupid turnovers, and they lose the game. But Luke Kuechly is their leader, okay? And Luke Kuechly's back. They're not losing at Tampa Bay. I just don't see it. The Bucs right now, their confidence level is shot. I mean, they can't even make a simple play to end that game last week. Even Humphreys can't even hold on to the ball late. Even though, of course, the rookie made a big play to Davis White again for the Bills. We've talked about him several times this season. Tampa Bay is a 2-point favorite at home. They swept Carolina last year. So I like Carolina to get a little bit of revenge here and win this game. The Bucs have lost 3 straight. They're also 0-4-1 against the spread in their last 5. So I'll take the Panthers.
Both teams are in the same boat. Todd Kuechly on one side, and on the other, you've got Levante David and Quan Alexander, essentially do the same things that Kuechly does for that defense, and they just returned last week. So, flip a coin on this one. I will make a call at some point, but it's almost like two teams doing the Spider-Man mirror image thing. Just same situations, disappointing seasons, injury concerns, inconsistent quarterback play. The one thing that you can't say is bad coaching because Rivera has done what he can with his gig, and Cutter has been flat out incompetent. Maybe it comes down to that, and then the Panthers do pull it out.
All right, Chicago at New Orleans and the Bears. Again, this is another reason why you should always look. I don't care that Mitch Trubisky hasn't had a great run here in his first 3 games, but they're 2-1 straight up, 3-0 against the spread with him as the starter. And I believe in all of my heart that sometimes it's not about stats or actual play when you need some sort of a lift for your team. And just having Trubisky on the field, to me, is all the difference in the world for the Bears. No way does this team 3-4 with Mike Glennon at quarterback right now. You just have a different attitude as a team about, hey, this is our guy. This is the future. We got to rally behind him. And all of a sudden, the defense is really starting to pick it up and play some big ball with the 2 big turnovers last week. And the defense has played well when they've been healthy. It's something they were not healthy last year. John Fox, by the way, is a heck of a coach. So that's really been working for them, but they're playing a Saint team right now that's on fire. They've won 4 straight up and against the spread by a 132-68 margin, each win by 9 points or more. So on one hand, you can go, well, that's going to eventually stop, isn't it? In a league that's usually so close. But you know what? Until it does stop, why not take the Saints? Bears might even be a little bit overdue for a clunker. It's a road game. Saints are red hot. I'll take the Saints. Give the 9 here. I look right now, they're the best team in the NFC South.
Yeah, I mean, no disputing that. I think Trubisky got a nice break last week. Didn't have to do much, and that's great. And I think the plan will be for him not to try to do much here, to play keep away and ride the running game. That's why it's another big game for the Saints defense more than the constant that you're going to get in that offense. Another chance to prove, this is a different year. because you know what's coming. You know it's a heavy dose of the ground game. You know they're going to punch you in the mouth. And if you respond, get the ball back for your offense, Breeze is going to make it happen. You're going to win again. If they break off big plays, because they do have great athletes and a tendency to do that, then this could be interesting.
All right, a few more games to go here. And Indianapolis at Cincinnati, and the Bengals are a 10.5-point favorite. The Colts 0-3 straight up and against the spread on the road this year by a 128-49 margin. So that doesn't bode well for them, especially since their secondary is an absolute mess. I mean, just about every player in that secondary is hurt. Their star rookie's out for the year. Hooker, Butler's hurt. Davis is just getting back, but he's still dealing with not being 100%. Green's hurt. Melvin's hurt. Wilson's hurt. Gethers is still out. So Andy Dalton, these are the games that Andy Dalton should be able to take care of. I'm not sure I'm touching the game. There's no way I could take the Colts if I do touch this game. But you know what last week's game against Pittsburgh reminded me of? It's the first time, and it always happens every year when you're trying to pay attention to the Bengals. Sometimes you forget about Marvin Lewis and especially Andy Dalton, and you always need to be reminded, and usually are, when they play a big game, especially if it's against Pittsburgh, but just a big game, because they don't win big games, and last week was a reminder. And this is why sooner or later it's either Marvin Lewis has to go or somebody has to go that is going to give A.J. McCarron a shot. I've seen enough of Andy Dalton. We know what he can do. We know what his limitations are, but we don't know about A.J. McCarron. And what are you going to do? Because A.J. McCarron ain't going to be around forever. So they're going to have to make a decision on McCarron real soon, and he may not even be with the Bengals next year. What are you going to do? What happens if he goes somewhere and becomes a star, and you didn't even give him a shot? So sooner or later, something has to happen there. But anyway, the Colts with no Andrew Luck, it's looking pretty weak for him. We'll find out if Brissett can come back after a bad week last week.
Yeah, in the short term, we'll see if we see McCarron this week, meaning that it would be a blowout and the spread would be safely covered. So we'll see.
By the way, the home team 7-0 straight up, 6-1 against the spread in this series since 2008. These two teams have played a bunch. San Francisco and the Eagles 6-1 against 0-7. Normally it would be okay. Well, that's all I need to know. But it's a 13-point spread, and the Niners have proven for the most part to be a good spread team, losing all 4 of their road games this year by a combined total of 11 points with 2 overtime games. The bad news for Philadelphia: no Hicks, out for the year. Peters also out for the year. Those are big injuries, especially Peters. We'll see. Shouldn't affect him in this game. No reason to not take the Eagles. And you know what I was really impressed with the Eagles last week was the fact that early in that game, for at least a quarter and a half or so, they were probably playing as bad as they played all season. And then within about a minute or two, they were winning the game. And then early in the second half, they were controlling the game. That's what really good teams do.
Yeah, they hit the big pass play, and that really, it could have lingered. I think that was the key, is how quickly they snapped out of it, because you didn't want it to get to halftime. And then they were able to rescue it with a stop on defense, the big pass play, and then they took advantage, even had control of the game heading into the break, as opposed to going down, whatever it was, 10-0 or 10 down a touchdown. Yeah, look, this is a situation, though, where potentially you're looking at a coaching staff that's trying to get out of Dodge with a win. Because of the Peters injury, now the offensive line is going to be shaken up a little bit, and all you're trying to do is not cover a 13-point spread, but just pile on and beat a winless team. So that number is a little high for my taste.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what kind of a quarterback Beathard's going to be. He's not going to be a starter, I would think, with the Niners more than likely. Of course, with this record, going out and definitely getting one of these big-time quarterbacks in the draft. But maybe he'll be a starter at some point. Maybe he'll be a really good backup. I will say this. I kind of think that he's being thrown in there too soon. I don't think Hoyer was doing anything that deserved him to kind of take a back seat to Beathard. So I don't know. I thought the Niners were kind of fighting, with Hoyer, but they're looking to the future, and I guess they do want to see whether Beathard can be the guy before they make a decision with that draft next year.
Yeah, I mean that looks to be what it is. Just a team that willing to explore its options. Because I agree with you, Hoyer had them fighting, and despite a real issues in the red zone, he was moving the ball.
All right, and finally, Minnesota-Cleveland. This will be the first game on Sunday at 9:30. Final London game. There'll be one more Mexico game. That'll be New England and Oakland in mid-November. Minnesota favored by 9.5, and I'll jump all over the Vikings here because, as I said at the open, being a trend guy, none of these London games this season have been close. 97-7 winning margin with back-to-back shutouts in London games. Boy, if you're in London, you got to love these games. And then you get the Cleveland Browns coming to town with those trends smacking you in the face. So you tell me what you think is going to happen when Deshaun Kaiser goes up against that Viking secondary. I don't think it's going to be pretty with Joe Thomas now out for the year. Cleveland, on one hand, they've got 4 or 7 losses by a total of 3 points. They lost in overtime last week, and they are trying and they are fighting, and their defense has been okay. But they're kind of banged up this week. Secondary's got a couple of guys banged up. Collins, Garrett also kind of hurt. That doesn't help against the Vikings. Doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. Vikings should cruise in this one.
Yeah, pray for Duke Johnson. It's an unfortunate situation. I mean, he's having a great season and nobody cares. But it's a defense that Kaiser's going to run into that has really a body of work of dominating backup quarterbacks. They've done it all year. So I think you'll probably see that continue.
All right. By the way, I'll have my college football preview show tomorrow. And there haven't been a lot of big weekends, Saturdays in college football this season. But this is the best. I mean, there are just so many good games on Saturday. So I guess you're going to obviously be glued in as well. You got Penn State, Ohio State's a big one. NC State, Notre Dame's going to be huge. Matter of fact, I'm going to interview Joe Giglio from the News and Observer a little bit later on to talk about the game. Georgia-Florida rivalry. Georgia Tech's playing better against Clemson, and the 2 Arizona teams having big games this week, Washington State and USC. So, and then more, ton of other nice ones. So they're wall-to-wall really big games this weekend. This is a big, of course, the biggest one's the Penn State-Ohio State game. Penn State, it's going to be tough for them because they got Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State. You kind of get the feeling they're going to lose one of those games. I mean, you can't win every game. But I like the fact that they're a 7-point dog. I mean, that's a live money line play there. I'm not sold on Ohio State beating good teams. They score 60 every week against the Sisters of the Poor. But then when you go up against the good teams, it's a different story.
Yeah, we'll see how much growth they've truly gotten out of the program since the Oklahoma game. We'll find that'll be the measuring stick for them. I think the line threw a lot of people. I know that. Probably 4-point favorite would have sufficed. You knew Ohio State was going to be favored at home, but the full 7, a lot of people think that that's a tipping point, and that the Nittany Lions won't show up. I'm not one of them. I think should be a good one. I've got my eye on UCF and Austin Peay. Key game for the night. Trying to stay undefeated.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be UCF. It still looks like it's going to be UCF, South Florida. Look at how awesome that would be if that was 2 undefeated teams battling it out for a chance just to play in their championship game. And then, of course, who knows what would happen. I'm still waiting to find out what happens if one of those teams goes undefeated because you're going to get one of those group of 5 games. Yeah, well, you know what? When you go undefeated, sometimes you don't want a group of 5 games. Sometimes you want to go into that playoff little formula that you got going on, and it's going to be almost impossible sometimes to let you in, unless you play probably one decent team out of conference.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a numbers game though. There's the possibility for that to exist if both teams remain undefeated. And we get some 2-loss teams that play their way out of the equation. I don't see how you can keep a UCF USF winner out. It just goes to show that we've evolved from South Florida joining the Big East and trying to keep UCF out with every single vote to the point where legislature had to get involved to get those 2 universities to play. That's why Knights hate bowls, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, awesome, Tony. We'll check out your Thursday night report is up already. We'll take a look at your NFL Essentials article, which will be out tomorrow at VegasInsider.com. And enjoy the college and pro football games this week. And we'll talk to you again next Thursday.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar reference in that Miami Dolphins-Ravens game. The football player. By the way.
Why? Why was there a reference?
Oh, that's his 3 touchdowns were the last time. Provided the margin, the only time Miami's won in Baltimore.
Interesting. Okay, I like it.
20 years ago.
All right, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Okay, we'll see if we get that.
The former Sharman Shah. You only get that stuff here.
That's right. That's why you want to listen to the show. Tony, thank you.
All right, be good.
You too. All right, that's Tony Mejia. And we're here every Thursday talking NFL on the Ourlads Football Network. And then again, college football on Friday. So we'll go over the top games tomorrow. We'll go over the latest odds, trends, everything we do on the show, I will do with some of the top games, of course, all the top games, and also update anything else going on in some of the other games, because there's a lot of good games this weekend in college football. That's tomorrow on our college football show. So check that out. By the way, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. And go to Ourlads.com. That's where we have all of our shows available on demand. You can also check out our YouTube and iTunes pages on the Prime Sports Network. And for the best NFL and college football depth charts in the business, Ourlads.com. All right, and we'll see you in about a half hour when we have our interview with Joe Giglio from the News and Observer, talking now North Carolina State football with their big game against Notre Dame. And then we'll see you tomorrow for college football talk. And then, of course, next Thursday and every Thursday right here on OFN NFL Preview with Tony Mejia on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. We should never be afraid to die.